¿Se ve? Se ve. Hola, buenos días. Voy a esperar aquí en silencio un rato a que haya personas.
Buenos dineros.
Mi apoyo en forma de Prime.
Gracias. Damage 13 Incorporated.
Hola, amigo.
Aspaldico.
Gracias.
Buenos dineros.
Un gran Manolo. Gracias a un anónimo. Una mosca, no, me cago en Dios. Me cago en mi puta. Ay.
Buenos dineros.
Gracias. El hombre lápiz.
Buenos dineros.
Gracias. 97 Mario MD.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Gracias, Slevin. K3 Letresbra. Complicado.
Buenos dineros.
Gracias, Giuseppe Luigi.
Buenos dineros.
Gracias, PV13. Ay. Bueno, van 5 minutos Y el OBS me sigue marcando que hay 0 espectadores. Pero evidentemente, dado que ha habido como 6 suscripciones, entiendo que hay más de 0 espectadores. David edita un buen carro. Es una putada porque yo voy a jugar a The Beginner's Guide. No sé qué esperar de este juego. Me lo dijeron esto hace mucho tiempo, no tengo ni puta idea de qué esperar. Pero voy a jugar, o sea, no tengo mucho más. Joder, me mola un montonazo porque cuando tengo el chat del OBS bien, el de Twitch
Las cacas y los pedos.
no funciona. No entiendo nada. Pero bueno, ¿por qué no funciona esto bien, tío? ¿Por qué no se puede ver? A ver. Y me sale que no entiendo nada. Confío en que Twitch esté funcionando bien y ya está. Me habéis dicho cosas muy bonitas de este juego, pero no sé muy bien qué esperar, tío. No sé qué va a pasar.
¿Te vas a pasar del tirón?
Sí, me va a pasar del tirón. Porque me habéis dicho dura como hora y media o así. Mucha gente me ha pedido que me pase este y el Stanley Parable juntos. Pero no. O sea, me pasaré este. Y otro día con calma me paso el Stanley Parable y ya está. 562 personas. Sí que hay gente, entonces, vale. Tengo que asesinarte, coño. Pues que deje, ¿qué le queda de jugar a Dayo? Me cago en Dios. ¿Qué le está pasando a Dayo?
Recordad que podéis realizar una suscripción.
Pero si va a 0.8, ¿por qué no se va a FK y ya está? ¿A quién quiere engañar? Va a 0.8. ¿Qué está pasando? Dayo, déjalo estar. Que va a 0.8, o sea, que no va a salir adelante eso. Bueno, al menos aquí tengo chat. Ay, con YouTube Prime, ojalá. Tronco, paso un momento. Sí, me has dicho antes lo de que hable de lo de Discord, pero es que tampoco hay mucha gente hoy. Entonces no sé. Pero bueno, los que estáis suscritos, que están haciendo algo. A mí Discord me da mucho miedo, ya lo sabéis. Pero están haciendo algo de especial de este mes, de octubre. De cosas de miedo y Halloween. Entonces no sé si son tonos y cosas. Es que hay mucha información. Spooktober, seres de luz y Jofrillers. Bueno, el mes se siente cosa. Torneo 3v3 de League of Legends. Torneo Hearthstone. Sorteo de skins terroríficas y bundle terrorífico. Me cago en la puta de horas. Terror Weekend. Y relato terrorífico. Y hay mucha gente que ha puesto emotivos de cosas de que está contento. Hay uno que es mi cara con el símbolo de España. Bastantes Hogwarts. Y 8 molinillos de viento. O sea que pasados por esta mierda. Lo diré. De todas formas, en algún directo que haya más gente lo comento otra vez. Que es spooky, que te alegra el corazón cuando lo miras de frente. Con tantos tiros en la polla. Va a parecer un queso mental. ¡Ay! Me daba como cosa jugar esto hoy porque quiero retomar bien lo de los jueves de juegación, pero como voy a hacer lo de Hearthstone subiendo a leyenda, pues me da palo hacer esto hoy y luego pasarme 3 semanas sin jugar otro juego así de este palo. Pero me apetecía jugarlo. Y aparte eso, hice ayer votación. ¿Qué queréis que juegue? Voy a ir muteando ya suscripciones porque si no luego no me voy a acordar. Muchas gracias por todos los dineros. Son lo que me motiva a seguir. Pero si no me dierais dinero no podría seguir adelante, literalmente. Sería imposible, tendría que volver a casa de mis padres y buscarme un trabajo de verdad. Pero de mientras, que... no sé qué estaba diciendo. Vale, ya están en silencio. Dineros silenciados. El primera suscripción moteado. Que eso, que me apetecía jugarlo. Hice la votación preguntando si queréis LOL o esto, porque en verdad me apetece jugar a esto. Porque llevo mucho tiempo diciendo, voy a jugar Beginner's Guide. Y no sé qué cojones esperar, no tengo ni puta idea. Pero me da palo eso. Pero bueno, que da igual, que se juegue y fuera. Estas notificaciones en silencio. No creo que sea mucho problema para vosotros, si no las quito del todo. Voy a jugar, no sé si mi cara está puesta en un mal lugar. Espero que la luz no se vaya, que ayer se fue jugando al LOL y me jodió muchísimo. No debería irse la luz, está todo bien. Tengo puesto el ordenador y poco más. Y la nevera, porque si no, ¿sabes? Que como se me vaya la luz, de forma jodida con la nevera hasta arriba de comida, pues es un problema bastante grave. Empieza ya. Solamente llevo 10 minutos, 5 en silencio y 5 hablando absolutamente de nada. Compañero. Claro, te con esto un 79% lo voto. Bueno, voy a jugar ya. Es que me da como cosa, porque no sé qué va a pasar. No tengo ni puta idea. Solamente habéis dicho cosas muy buenas y no tengo ni zorra de qué va. La sonido está bastante activado. Vale, sencillo. También un montón de gente me habéis dicho que juegue Stanley Parable y que esto lo haga yo solo por mi cuenta. Que debería, pero
I
vamos.
wrote the Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011. We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now, these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff, and his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make. So just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way. And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment. But what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful
Empezamos de cero otra vez. Yo me he enterado de lo que ha pasado, pero igual vosotros no os habéis enterado algunos. Entonces, iba a preguntar, porque no sabía si era una cinemática al principio y no quería saltarlo. Pero vamos, lo que ha contado, que él hizo un juego antes, que era Stanley Parable, que era una cosa muy loca. Y ahora ha hecho esto, que cuenta una historia de 2008 a 2011, creo. Y la cosa es... repasa los juegos que hizo un colega suyo, que le pillaron en un momento emocional complicado y cosas así. Entonces, el primer juego que hizo el colega suyo es esto, que es un nivel del Counter-Strike. Resumido muy mal, pero vamos, los que no habéis entendido, os quedáis con eso, y los que lo habéis entendido, pues a partir de aquí todo bien. También la cámara de subtítulos. Es cierto, buen mensaje. Respetad un poco de borde, que eso siempre me gusta a mí. No me enteré porque llegue tarde. Una lástima. He esperado 10 minutos aquí en silencio la mitad de ese tiempo, incluso, ¿eh? O sea que... Ojo, cuidado. Porque suena tan bonito esto.
abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town, and instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person.
Son bastante buenos los subtítulos.
And it kind of makes you wonder what was going through his head.
Vamos a empezar de cero. Porque igual haría falta que los subtítulos estén funcionando. Si lo queréis leer, si no, pues no pasa nada, ¿sabes? Se puede estar en silencio, pero... Ahí salto que ahí no salía.
Hi there. Thank you very much for playing the Beginner's Guide.
Y me
My
sale
name is
arriba.
Davey Reedon.
Venga, va.
I wrote the Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011. We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now, these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff, and his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make. So just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way. And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment. But what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town, And instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person. And it kind of makes you wonder, what was going through his head as he was building this? This is what I like about all of Coda's games. I mean, not that they're all fascinating as games, but that they are all going to give us access to their creator. I want us to see past the games themselves. I want to get to know who this human being really is. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So, it's 2008, Coda starts making these games, and he never releases any of them. He doesn't put them onto the internet, he just makes them and then immediately abandons them, and they sit on his computer forever. And I think he really understood this image of himself as a recluse. At one point, he jokingly renamed his computer's recycling bin to Important Games Folder. So, you know, this was just how he worked. He tended to crank them out one after the other without even really pausing to try to understand what he had just made, until suddenly one day, he just stopped. In 2011, that was it. He made his last game, and then he hasn't made another one since. And that's why I've taken this opportunity to gather all of his work together, is because I find his games powerful and interesting,
Me está
and
gustando.
I'd like this collection to reach him, to maybe encourage him to
Bastante.
start creating again. And if the people like you who play this also happen to find his work interesting, then I'm sure it'll just send that much stronger of a message of encouragement to Coda. So thanks for joining me on this. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't mentioned here, or if you just need to get in touch, you can email me at daveywreden@gmail.com. Okay, that's about it for introduction. Let's take a look at Coda's first proper game. As each game is loading, I'll show you the date that it was completed. This first one was made in November 2008.
Os habéis enterado, ¿no? Pues ya está.
Warning. Whisper machine active. Shift to structure imminent.
This game is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
El problema es que no, tú sabes, no quiero hablar. Quiero que este señor me hable a mí.
Security call breached. Hostile alien life form inbound.
Supone que hay aliens.
It kinda looks like this game was abandoned mid-development. For instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are supposed to be monsters or enemies somewhere, but then clearly there are no enemies anywhere. You can't even reload the gun when you run out of bullets. But ultimately we don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Enemy force neutralized. Begin chute evacuation.
I love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this room.
Espectacular. ¡Ah, coño! No puedo avanzar, ¿no, compañero? No puedo avanzar.
Apparently this space station has a labyrinth on it. Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip you on past it.
Vale.
Okay, this is the part that's interesting. The game has this narrative about the whisper machine and how it has to be turned off, and then you get to the engine room.
Hey, you there, in the engine room. You could save us all. That beam is powering the whisper machine. We could disrupt it by introducing a great enough heat signature. If your
Que me mate.
body could stop the beam. It's so much to ask, but for all of our lives, would you do it? Could you give yourself?
Hay juegos que tienen cosas de estas, en plan... Termínate.
Let me pause here for a
Espectacular.
second. What you just experienced, stepping into the beam and then dying, is probably what Coda had initially intended when he was developing this level. But when he first compiles and plays it, something goes wrong. There's a bug somewhere. And this is what happens instead.
Vaya.
The beam causes you to start floating. And this is an important moment for him. Because yes, this is technically a glitch, but Coda identifies
El
something
laberinto es
human
jodido
about
de
it,
cojones.
like
por otra
how
parte.
small it makes you feel in the face of this larger chaotic system. Or this floating could be the afterlife, a peaceful place, juxtaposed against all of the hysteria that you've just had to traverse. I don't even know. I have no idea what he was thinking, but what's clear is that after making this, something lodges itself in his brain. He wants to do more of these really weird and experimental designs. So he stops work on this and moves on to a stream of tiny little games that go in all sorts of directions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game he made after leaving this one behind.
No puedo decir cosas, tío. No puedo ver.
Yep, in this game you can only walk backwards. So it's a short and relatively minimalist experiment combining motion and narrative. It is less advanced than the previous game, but actually it seems to be more focused, more complete. Code is trying to give it a unique voice rather than simply basing it on a pre-existing trope.
Esto es precioso. Es una gilipollez, pero joder.
It's a short little thought, it says what it wants to say, and then it ends. Didn't need anything more than that. Which to me
Joder.
is why it works, because it gets out quick. Okay, next one.
Vale.
And that's it. Okay, the meaning of this game won't be clear just yet. Please be patient with me for a few more games, and I promise you'll see what makes it interesting. Oftentimes, Coda would put bizarre titles like this one at the start of his games.
No he leído, estaba leyendo el... Mejor tener
I
subtítulos
wish
porque
I'd
me
known
obliga a
at the time
leerlos.
that he was making these early games. He would really only talk to me about his work as he was making it.
O sea, lo
Once he
entiendo
stopped
sin
work
ellos,
on a
pero
game, like,
estando ahí las
that
letras
was
las
it.
leo.
It was dead to him. And I don't agree with that at all, but what are you gonna do? Once you've been slowed to an absolute crawl, the door at the top of the stairs opens. So why, if Coda's not showing these games to anyone, why bother opening the door at all? Well, to show you, I'm modifying the game here so that when you press enter, it'll bring you back up to full speed so you can enter the door for yourself.
¿Qué me estás contando?
A room that's warm and nice and filled with little ideas for games. Coda would often tell me that he didn't mind if people thought of him as cold or distant. He said that he knew that he was actually a vibrant and compassionate person, but that it takes time to really see that. It can be a very slow climb to get there.
Sus posteriores de conceptual mostrando en consiste juego. Recoges objetos, pero... ¡Ay! Otra vez no lo he leído.
Well, this is new for Coda. It's an actual puzzle. Go ahead and see if you can solve it.
Vaya.
don't forget that solution, because we're going to see this puzzle again soon.
Vale.
We're gonna see it a lot. So that seems to be it, right? You walk down a corridor, you solve a puzzle, you get to the end. Simple enough. All right, now I'm going to modify the game again so that when you press enter, it'll remove all of the walls from this room. How about that? There was more to it than we had any way
¿Qué me
of
estás
knowing.
contando?
I actually find it funny that this game comes after the stairs game, since they essentially convey the opposite idea. So, in the stairs game, a dull exterior concealed a rich interior. And then, in this level, a dull interior hides this fantastic outer world. Either way, I think that the point is the same, is that most of the time you don't get to know what you're missing, or even that you're missing anything. That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
Vuelta a este lugar.
Aha. So, this, combined with the entering game from earlier, tells us that Coda believes his games are connected somehow. It could even be that the stairs game and the puzzle game are literally connected in between this and the entering game. There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in, some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them. And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
Me voy a pasar las 2 horas de juego en silencio y me lo voy a pasar de puta madre, pero como directo, no sé. Que estáis viendo una película con mi cara en una esquina. Que me parece maravilloso. Otra vez de espaldas, tío. Está muy lejos esto. No me estoy acercando a una mierda, no puedo acercarme. No camino de espaldas.
Let's talk about video game development for a second. Every video game runs on what's called an engine, which determines what the game can and cannot do. So in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game development. To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source. Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms, is just because he's working with what the engine does well. The tools available to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making. You might consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games, to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
Quería entrar. Quería entrar. Ay, mi puta madre. Hacia atrás como hacia la derecha, raro. Coño de la madre. Hasta luego, buenas tardes. Me haría molado más verlo de arriba porque, no sé, estaba interesante. Ahora es para atrás de verdad. Y esto es un matadero o algo así. O una cárcel. Adentro. Caminar normal, que no puedo caminar normal. Ahora sí me deja, cabrón. Al llegar abajo te deja.
This prison, funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna skip that.
Ay. No, no podía desde... Arriba no podía caminar normal.
This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. You know, whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, you know, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games, each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere. There wasn't. It's the puzzle again, with the exact same solution as the last time. There's still no clear indication of what makes this puzzle so special that Coda is going to return to it over and over. But I promise I'll share with you my interpretation very shortly.
Perfecto. Sí, lo de los 3 puntos lo he visto antes.
Here, Coda begins using a kind of dialogue system that he fashioned out of the engine's chat capabilities. Use the 1, 2, 3 buttons on your keyboard to respond.
Tuviste que superar un acertijo de 2 puertas, interruptores. Aquí no lo has tenido, preferiría no decírtelo, al fin y al cabo nos acabamos de conocer. Está emocionado, tío. Pero no funciona para el otro sentido. La puerta, creo. No tenía... Bueno, no sé si tendrá por este lado también. No puedo decírselo. ¿Por qué no puedo decírtelo? A ver, que en realidad es un sitio de mierda. No voy a decir nada más. Nos hemos dado cuenta de que el espacio de las puertas es mucho más interesante. ¿Lo has visto ya? Lo es, cara. Mentira, me acuerdo que sentía al atravesarlo, me acuerdo que no hay espacio entre las puertas. Joder.
And so we make one last descent down to the final floor of the level.
Ahí el piso está ahí para bolsa y que sé cuál es.
It's a lamppost. Okay, I can't tell you quite why, but for some reason Coda fixates on this lamppost. It's going to appear at the end of every single one of his games from here on out. I'll tell you what I think. I think that up to this point, you know, he's been making really strange and abstract games with no clear purpose, and maybe you can only float around in that headspace for so long. Because now he wants something to hold on to. He wants a reference point. He wants the work to be leading to something. He wants a destination, which is what this lamppost is. It's a destination. We're gonna see it in the work as well. His games are just gonna become a lot more cohesive, a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
Perfecto. Tronco otra vez. Vaya. No sé si, o sea, me habéis dicho que en otro sí que se puede avanzar normal. No puedo avanzar normal. Entiendo que es intencional.
All of the notes that you're going to see have been written by Coda. This was actually the first game of his that I ever played. This was shortly after I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person. In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy, trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it and very patient with me. And I cooled off eventually. Oh, feel free to skip over any of these notes if they're not doing anything for you. Nothing extra is going to happen if you read all of them. Either way, to me they convey a sense of loneliness. I see this person who's filled with thoughts and feelings and beliefs.
Me molaría leerlas todas, pero estoy hasta los cojones de caminar de lado.
Except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played.
Tiene movimiento bug. ¿Qué hago? ¿Reseteo el juego? Es que solamente puedo ir, o sea, le doy hacia atrás y me va hacia la derecha y los demás no hacen nada. Ah, no, si le doy a la izquierda... Voy a reiniciarlo, tío. Reinicio el nivel y le damos otra vez. Y si no, pues reinicio el juego. Porque no es normal. Y por favor que funciones. Vámonos. Vale. Ahora podemos jugar.
So first off, I'm sure you can deduce
no es normal,
this,
tío.
this
Me
game
cago en
is not
Dios.
connected to the internet. All of the notes that you're going to see have been written by Coda. This was actually the first game of his.
Para ponerlas todas él solo, me cago en mi puta existencia.
I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person. In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy, trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it.
Sí, en el... Entiendo que estaba bugueado antes también. Cuando está dando vueltas alrededor de una casa. Si no era intencional que yo fuera de lado, porque en verdad ha quedado guapísimo. Le está dando vueltas mientras el tío no para de hablarme. Si eso no era el objetivo, vamos. Me alegro de que se me haya bugueado. Aquí ya sí que era una puta mierda.
And has no way to express them except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played.
¿Qué mierda es esta cámara?
But it's ironic, isn't it, that in playing this game and seeing how
Seguir vivo
alone
porque
Coda
nada sea tan
often felt,
majestuoso, no quiero volver a
that we
ver nada
get to
si
know
no es
him
igual de
better and
majestuoso. Estoy
actually
llorando y
kinda
quiero
connect
arrancarme
with
los ojos. Es lo que voy a hacer.
And
Me
I have to
cago
be
en
honest
Dios,
with you,
Coda.
this idea is really seductive to me. That I could just play someone's game and see the voices in their head and get to know them better and have to do less of the messy in-person socializing.
Todas este verano.
I could just get to know you through your work.
Se pueden hablar.
I think this is why I always liked Coda's games so much, is because it felt like they let me have that connection. I felt as though he was inviting me personally into his world.
Bastante
And then I
personal,
feel
es que
less lonely too.
Realmente tengo algo antes que jugar a esto. ¿Puedo saltar ahí? No. Que viene ahorita allí en alguna parte. Me da como palo dejar tan rápido, dadme caso, por favor. Uf. Tengo mucho que alguien me deseara. Me cago en Dios. No voy a leer todas. Pero... En realidad si estuviera solo me las leería encantado. Ninguna parte. Si tengo que pasar por ahí no me voy a leer todas ni de coña. Me paso 3 semanas. Estoy a torre diablo, ¿qué cojones era eso? Parecía como si fuera en plan... ETD. Lo de los mensajes de barcos. Lo de puto Corky.
At the end of this level, we're going to see the puzzle again. And here, I'll tell you what I think the puzzle means. Each of these games represents an idea that was on Coda's mind at the time that he was making it. And the puzzle is a way of closing the door on a previous chapter of his life before moving on to the next one. In each of his games, after exploring a theme that, he might find difficult, Coda can then place this puzzle that he knows has a reliable solution, he understands exactly how it works, and so it gives him a simple mechanism for moving on.
Bastante simplista, pero tiene sentido.
And because there's this dark area between the doors, a space between spaces, before you move on, you get to pause. Just for a moment, a few seconds to reflect on and let go of the events that led you here. To step back and connect the pieces together. To grasp at that elusive bigger picture.
Uf.
Okay, this one is tough. It's gonna kind of just spin its own wheels for a few minutes. Hang with it.
Ya lo sé, ya me he dado cuenta. No, lo he dicho, va a ser básicamente como una película en silencio, ¿no? Voy a mi rollo y ya está. No te quiero ver eso. Coño.
See, like, this is it. The whole game. And there's nothing that's particularly interesting about it. You just walk to the end of a hallway. Except, for some reason, Coda gets really fixated on this prison that has all of this modern furniture. And I don't know why, but he decides he needs to revisit this prison. He's gonna start over, use the same assets, turn it into something else. Okay, cool. Here's version 2.
Vaya. Un tragaluz, un techo. Una techo de cristal, que entre la claridad. 10 por 12 lámparas de LED de 6 pulgadas incrustadas en el techo, con botellas Tesla en cada esquina, sí, sí. 25 lámparas.
There's a bit more to this one, but still it's not really communicating anything. It's kind of just weird for weirdness' sake. So okay, he throws it out and starts over. This time he comes at the prison idea from a different direction.
Vale, cualquier escenario de prisión. Sencillamente paso a paso. Es una prisión real, lugar de vida, esto es al principio para regresar a la prisión.
And of course, now the table is gone and you can't begin the chain of events to escape. Here's a version where there are no bars, but you can't actually get to the well. And then a version where the inside of the prison is the outside and the outside is the inside. Let me just blink you real quick through a few more of these. I mean, he really unloaded on this prison idea. There's nearly a dozen. Personally, I think it's awful to watch this, to see a person basically unraveling through their work. And for what? Like, at what point do you just go, maybe there are game ideas other than this prison that I could be working on? But Coda doesn't have that voice telling you to stop, that particular mechanism of defense against yourself. Without it, you just spiral. And so he keeps going and going and going and going and going, and then he hits on something. And he likes it. And that's it. He's done. He stops making prisons. This is the very last version of the prison game that he created. And the reason I think it works is that the prison is not actually in it. It's a conversation. And so this is what Coda wants, is to be able to talk to someone, to share what's on his mind, and to get some good advice from someone who knows. But the irony is that even in this scenario, you're still talking to yourself. You know, all of these games so far are Coda talking to himself.
Está poniendo triste esta mierda, tío. Ay. Un vacío existencial todo duro. Es que esta presión es extraño por alguna forma. Si no está en la presión es como si estuviera completamente parado y fonéticamente en movimiento a la vez. Me cago en mi puta existencia. ¿Por qué me siento como si me estuvieran apuñalando en el pecho?
I can see why he considers this a fitting conclusion to the prison games. After all of the obsession and frustration, just to be told by someone you can trust that things are going to be okay. Wouldn't that be nice? So what would it look like if Coda wanted to make a game about talking to someone other than himself? To me, this environment is meant to represent Coda's puzzle, with the two doors on either side and a dark transitional space between. you'll notice that the quality of the art is a step up from previous games, including this new and improved chat system, which he started using from this point on. From here on out, he begins putting much more effort into the visual polish of his work, and this particular game took 2 months to create as a result.
¡Ja! Allí voy. A ver. Adelante, compañero. Cuéntame la movida, Cursi.
After the intense set of prison games,
Hemos
this
vuelto al
house
principio.
cleaning level almost feels like cleansing. It's the moment after a particularly difficult or traumatic experience where you just need to let it sit and digest inside of you, and eventually cohere into something meaningful.
Cariño.
I know that Coda really liked this game. Of all of his work, actually, this was the only one that he called me up to ask me to come over and look at it. This was during a period of a few months where he was like grossly happy all the time, just walked around with a constant smile on his face.
Es como su alma, te ocupas de ella y se ocupa de ti. No sé si alguien que acabas de conocer. Me llamo Cariño hace un momento.
I'm glad he made this. I'm glad he found some peace. But, of course, it can't last. The music stops, your companion is gone, it's time to leave. The door at the top of the hill is now open as well. Again, you can't stay in the dark space for too long. You just can't. You have to keep moving. It's how you stay alive. Which is the whole point of the puzzle doors, right? That sooner or later you have to pick up and move. I really thought that was the point of it. This
Va
one
un año
gets
ya
a
casi.
bit goofy.
No, más de un año. ¿Relaciones sean más significantes? No. Vienen aquí para ser perfectos.
About halfway through the game, the perspective shifts.
Me cago en mi puta existencia.
And you play as the teacher. And suddenly, you discover that your teacher is just as bigoted and afraid as you are. Oh, and also you can move around the classroom now.
Ay. El camino es más fácil y simple. Es que no sea fea hasta que me quieras. Eso es Joder, que dos frases de mierda, me cago en Dios. Las dos que realmente piensa él me dan muchísimo. Bueno, no, la del que este vale.
I fell pretty hard for this one. I feel like it's one of the most relatable experiences that you can have. To assume that some other person is perfect and totally fulfilled in every way, and completely miss all of the little flaws that make them painfully human. I think about this game a lot these days. This one took a lot
Otra vez
longer
la
than
puta
all the
cárcel.
others for Coda to make. It was 4 months between this and the last one. That's twice as long as it took him to make any other game before this, and it's not like it's particularly complex, so I remember I found that a little strange at the time.
Coño de la puta. Profesionales, en primer lugar, aprieten esa pared. Profesión de animales. Tus señores fotografían animales profesionalmente. Depende algo de ella y conseguir algo de tener éxito. Prudente. Creía que me tengo que ir al baño. Vaya. Antes de haber trabajado mucho para llegar hasta ahora, puesto que has aprendido a soportar el dolor, ¿qué sacrificios has tenido que hacer? tronco. Vaya.
The game ends with this eerie premonition of what's going to happen next in Coda's life. The solution to social anxiety, to fears of having to perform and having to chase success, the answer for Coda is to withdraw, to hide himself away. Which is what leads to scenarios like the stairs that slowed you down several games ago, where it just becomes harder and harder to access Coda's inner landscape
Se da ánimos a sí
because
mismo
he keeps retreating.
en
He
la
just keeps
huida.
backing away from possible connections to anyone other than himself. And to be honest, I didn't consider it very healthy when I first played this game. You know, it looked to me like he was trying to justify the idea of just disconnecting yourself from the world. And that wasn't what I wanted for him or for his games.
Es un
Because
tío,
I
una
feel
tía,
like a
joder.
lot of his games are inviting me to connect with this person, to bring him closer. But what can you do?
Entiendo que es un tío y que está
After
traducido
this,
regular, porque él habla en
Coda went
masculino.
off and took another 5 months to make a new game.
Vale. Uy, para jugar este juego correctamente tienes que tener los ojos cerrados. Haz clic para empezar a jugar. Me jode porque hay luz y me lo estoy perdiendo. Espérate. De verdad tengo que jugar con los ojos cerrados. Voy a leeros. Tengo que jugar con los ojos cerrados, de verdad. No puedo. O me dices de tío algo, no puedo hacer nada. Hay un Cristo de luz, tío. Vale.
You should probably open your eyes if you haven't already. It's pretty much impossible to solve otherwise. And there is a solution, by the way.
Vale. Ay. Lo he intentado, tío. Me he muerto. Nos vamos a estampar. Sí, probablemente. Oh, tengo que subir arriba, de alguna forma, supongo. Eso ya lo he dicho antes. Algo que sea honesto. Uf.
Like I said, I was getting concerned. First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So, where's that coming from? But then, even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing. Here was the point in my relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way.
Gracias.
His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new.
Para arrancarla de nuevo. Que me motivaba a seguir y se paró.
If the last game featured Coda talking explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes playing this. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even. And yet, still, he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for? Because from my perspective at the time and just what I knew of him, this was a result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on. You can't talk yourself out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash.
Me cago en Dios. Fue divertido que te encanta todo el rato. Lo está pasando complicado, pero bastante complicado.
Seeing this game at the time that he made it, it looked really unhealthy to me.
Es que lo es.
I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so trapped. It's like, video games are not worth this amount of suffering. This is someone I really cared about. And I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this, It was the worst thing for me.
Uf. Entonces, ¿qué hago con mi trabajo? Merece la pena totalmente al final. Sí. Ay, Dios.
I don't know. This is what I felt at the time. I don't know how else to explain it.
Es que no hay mucha más forma de
I wanted it to stop more than anything. I had never felt so rotten. I needed more than I had ever needed anything for this to stop.
Joder. It's así. En la puta cárcel. Encerrada en
But
sí
it didn't
misma.
stop. After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.
Medio 2011. Estamos llegando al final. No, creo que es el último. Por lo que había dicho antes, la máquina. Toda la máquina te está esperando. Pero sí, podríamos tener algo de atención. También otra cosa que más que debería saber sobre la máquina se hace llamar Coda. Uf. Me cago en Dios.
And of course, it's the machine.
¿Te parece si empezamos así? Me quiero morir, ¿eh? Uf. Mis seguidores, mis amigos, me cago en Dios. La máquina se escapa con nosotros, la máquina se niega a admitir que nos hirió deliberadamente. ¿Por qué te odias tanto? Oh. Pues es por ser más fuertes de lo que se piensa. Encontramos la forma de vivir sin ella, no necesitamos sus juegos. Debemos darle su merecido, debemos mostrarle que no somos unos fracasados. Joder. Destruiremos la máquina, destruiremos todo lo que ha quedado de la máquina. Joder.
Remember, you can click to fire the gun.
Esto está muy mal, tío. Ay.
So now the work is becoming self-destructive. And I'll tell you, at the time that I first played this game, shortly after he made it, here's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm thinking that code is stuck in his own head, and that it's having a very negative effect on him, and that all he needs to do is just start showing his work to people, to get some actual feedback on his games. It might get him out of isolation. And so, as I'm thinking this, I realize that I could be the one to initiate it. Because it would never occur to Coda to start actively soliciting feedback, so what if I did it for him? If he could see the difference it would make to have more actual conversations with other human beings, would that bring him out of his mental spiral? Would it give him confidence in himself? Would it bring meaning back into his work? So I started showing Coda's work to people. I took this one, and the islands which you just played, the theater, the notes, the house cleaning game, and some of the prison escape games. I brought them to people that I knew and trusted. I asked their opinions. And the great part is that they really loved his games. You know, the point of it all was just to give him some external reference point, but they genuinely loved his work. There was nothing for him to be afraid of.
¿Puedo dejarla de alguna forma? Porque creo que no. Pero tampoco quiero cargarme la máquina, tío.
Can you see why I felt like this was the right thing to do? Because it's the thing that I always feel like I need, to be told that my work is good, that I am good. When someone really connects with a thing that I've made, when they see themselves purely in my work, there's nothing that feels better. And I got to give that very same feeling to my friend. I did something... I really felt like I'd done something good, like I was a good person. I felt like there was a friend who was in trouble and was unhappy and maybe didn't like themselves, and I could fix it. If I could give him this gift, maybe I could fix the problem.
Porque parece que esté justificando algo
They told me
horrible.
how much they enjoyed his games. It was the best feeling. It was the absolute best feeling. It made me feel so happy. So beautifully, beautifully happy.
¿Y Coda qué? What about Coda?
So anyway, Coda finishes this game, and then really he just kind of takes off for a while. So this is June of 2011, and I didn't hear anything from him for several weeks, I guess. And so out of nowhere, one day I get an email, and it's got a private link to a new game of Coda's. This one is called The Tower, and to my knowledge, it's the last game that Coda ever made. So let's take a look.
Please don't.
And this is where I have trouble saying anything meaningful about Coda's work. Because more than anything else, the tower just feels distant. It feels like it's trying to distance itself from the world. It's a very cold game.
Please don't, por favor. Que no se muera esta persona, que no sé.
This room actually has a maze in it. Except that all the walls of the maze are invisible. And then every time you touch one of the walls, there's this awful flashing and noise, so the experience is really miserable. The game goes beyond not being meant to be played, it actually seems to despise the player for trying to play it at all. But I do want to show you the rest of the levels, so when you're ready to continue, press enter and I'll put a bridge over the maze.
Me molaría intentar pasarme el puzzle, o sea, el... Pero creo que no voy a poder. Vale, suficiente. Joder, coño, de la puta madre. Otra pasa si veo a gente como la polla, no, gracias. Pues se puede hacer, supongo. Mientras, o sea, si es real el puzzle, el laberinto se puede hacer. Pero vamos.
And to be fair, it's not like this is the first game that's needed some modification to be playable. Like the house cleaning game. You know, that one used to actually loop the cleaning chores and you just cleaned a house forever. I had to cut it off so that you could exit the house and the game would actually end. But that game had an idea that it was actually trying to communicate. What's the deeper idea behind the invisible maze? The only way past this challenge is to randomly guess the 6-digit code. Like the invisible maze, it's frustrating to me, because it's the opposite of everything else that Coda has made. It doesn't encourage thought or engagement. It doesn't ask anything of me, except a lot of my time. If I could have reached him during this time, then maybe I could have asked him, but I couldn't. I still don't really understand why this is here. I'll put the code on the ground for you here, though, so that we can move on. The switch to open this door is actually on the other side of the door, meaning that it's literally impossible to solve from this side. So even if you somehow brute forced your way through the first 2 challenges, and you got to this point, there's actually just no way to progress. And it's scary for me, the idea of Coda cutting himself off entirely, just saying, you know, that's it, that's the end of the conversation, not giving me any way to fix the problem. I feel like a failure, I guess, when I can't fix the problem. But I can open this door for you, so let me do that. Was I a failure for not understanding this game? I mean, I don't know why I would be. It's not like everything needs to have a solution, but I feel it somehow. I feel like I failed, and I don't understand why. I remember, it's June of 2011, I'm playing this for the very first time, and as I'm playing, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know this person. I have no idea who this person is. It wasn't the guy I knew, it wasn't my friend. I had come to so many conclusions from looking at all of his work up to this point, and then suddenly none of them... I had been trying to, though, that was the thing. For years I was trying to get to know him, to understand who he actually was and what he stood for. I asked him so many times to please just tell me what his games mean to him. I asked him please to tell me what the 3 dots mean. And he wouldn't.
Ha referenciado lo de los puntos que no lo había dicho, o sea, no ha hecho mención a ello durante todo el juego. Creo.
I just felt so strongly that if I could have connected with him, that if I could have somehow made his work my own, that I would finally be once and for all happy. It was that I needed to see myself in someone else. I needed to be someone other than me. But he stopped and left, and it felt somehow like I had failed. Where did I screw up? I'm the reason that you stopped making games, aren't I? It's because of what I did. I poisoned it for you.
Por mostrarlos. Joder.
I don't think I ever told you this, but when I took your work and I was showing it to people, it actually felt... it felt as though I were responsible for something important and valuable. And the people who played them, they treated me like I was important. They really listened and cared about what I had to say. Even though I was showing your work, it was... I felt good about myself. Finally. For a moment, while I had that, I liked myself.
Uf. Pues a lo mejor es la gente en contra de mi voluntad.
And then you stopped, and I didn't have anything left to show people. I just had to be with myself. And as soon as that happened, there was no feeling at all. Nothing. Less than nothing. What does that mean?
No puedo darte literalmente lo que tengo. Vaya terrible giro de los acontecimientos.
I'm afraid that I did something really stupid because I don't like myself.
Coño.
That's why I'm releasing this collection of your work, is because I haven't been able to find any other way to reach you. I've tried everything. And so a part of me has hope that if I put this compilation out into the world, and if I put my name on it, that maybe enough people will play it so that it'll find its way to you, so that I can tell you that I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. If I apologize to you truly and deeply, will you start making games again? Please, I need to feel okay with myself again. And I always felt okay as long as I had your work to see myself in. I mean, is something wrong with me? Because I know that I did an awful thing, and I'm doing it again right now. Like, I'm showing people your work, but I can't stop myself from doing it. That's how badly I need to feel something again, like I'm an addict. There has to be something wrong with me. Can I apologize? What if I tell you I was wrong? Will that work? Will that fix it? I don't know. I don't think it will, but there's nothing else that I can do. Just tell me what you want. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please, start making games again. Please help me. Please give me some of whatever it is that makes you complete. I want whatever that wholeness is that you just summoned out of nothing and you put into your work. You were complete in some way that I never was. I want to know I want to know how to be a good person. I want to know how not to hate myself. Please. I'm fading, and all I want is to know that I'm going to be okay. more. More love, more praise, more people telling me that I'm good. Always more. It's like a disease. Solution. I guess if someone had told me ahead of time that he just really enjoyed making prison games, maybe I wouldn't have thought he was so desperate. I wouldn't have told so many people that he was depressed. Maybe he just likes making prisons. Even now, the disease is telling me to stop. Don't show people what a shitty person you are. They'll hate you.
Vale.
If I knew that my life depended on finding something to be driven by other than validation, what would that even be? It's strange, but the thought of not being driven by external validation is unthinkable. Like, I actually cannot conceive of what that would be like. What now? I think I need to go. And I'm sorry, because I know that I said that I would be here and I would walk you through this, but I'm starting to feel like I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot that I need to make up for. And so I'm just gonna... Okay.
Ese cubo negro. Ay, me pone muy nervioso que no hable. Que no hable el narrador o que no hable yo. Cuando te dejas solo el narrador es jodido, pero... es lo que tiene. Es que poco puedo contarte, o sea, no sé. ¿Cómo está el chat? Otra vez lo del sacrificio al principio. Y para arriba otra vez. Ay. A ver, está muy interesante, está muy bien. Es un viaje cojonudo, pero... Creo que hay motivos para despreciar. No. También entiendo que si ha entrado alguien a mitad y se encuentra esto, está diciendo, ¿qué coño me estás contando? Pero no, joder, está muy interesante esto, tío. Es un planteamiento muy... no sé.
Turn back from this cave. You said, let me prove that I'm brave. Let me keep going. But the cave goes for miles and miles and miles. And you're so tired. But I know
Es jodida hasta la música al final, me cago en Dios.
so turn back.
De los struggles. Ay. Me gusta mucho. Este juego puede haber sido un artículo, un corto jodidamente interesante, puede haber sido una película. Sí. O sea, cualquier tema se puede tratar de infinitas formas posibles. Me parece bien que hagan esto. Me parece bien que alguien quiera, no sé, explorar estas ideas a través de un videojuego. Me parece maravilloso. Al principio... Ah, estaba tapándolo. Bueno, ahí se veían los créditos de la gente y tal. Aunque si no vemos con el doyo no vamos a rompernos con esto. Tenemos 2 horas, algo menos. El Stanley Parable lo jugaré otro día, porque me he pillado el bundle que venían los dos por 18 pavos. No sé, he pagado 9 euros por esto, me parece maravilloso. Lo volveré a pagar. Me ha dejado muy mal cuerpo, es que... Entiendo que es la idea, me ha dejado destrozado. Pero bueno. También un montonazo de cosas de las que habla eso, lo de validarse en la opinión de los demás y tal. Como que me cuesta entrar en esos temas, teniendo en cuenta que mi trabajo consiste en hacer que 1000 personas decidan pagarme mi sueldo cada mes. Igual el hablar sobre el buscar caerle bien al resto no es un tema que me guste tratar así en público, pero joder, no, tiene cosas muy interesantes. Que... Dado que ha sido 1 hora 45, jugaría un LOL o 2. Pero creo que no. Creo que me voy a ir a hacerme la cena. Juega tu un run de Hearthstone para quitar el mal cuerpo. Ay. Nada, lo voy a dejar aquí hoy. Mañana en principio hacemos lo de Hearthstone y tal, pero no creo que esto merezca mezclarse con más cosas. Lo dejamos aquí y ya está. Un cocinando mierda. Algún día haré un cocinando mierda. Tengo calabacines que compré otro día y quiero hacerme crema de calabacín, que no lo he hecho en mi puta vida, pero es de las cosas que más me gustan en el puto universo. Pero que también un cocinando mierda de crema de calabacín, que es... voy a cocer esto. Vaya, lo he cocido. Voy a echarle quesitos, patatas y creo que un ave creen, sí, eso. Y voy a batirlo. ¡Wow! Lo he hecho. ¡Qué rico está! No sé yo hasta qué punto eso está interesante, pero vamos, ya veremos. Me voy a pirar. Y nos vemos mañana con eso, con Hearthstone o con lo que sea. Un placer haber compartido esto con vosotros. Entiendo la gente que me decía que no era un juego para jugar en directo, pero bueno, aún así, 1 hora y 45 de prácticamente no hablar y vosotros lo veis conmigo, yo creo que está bien. Y me piro. Un placer. También, ahora que hay 1000 personas, que hay más que antes, reitero lo que he dicho al principio. Están en el Discord, los que estéis suscritos, haciendo torneos y hostias por cosas de octubre, por el mes que es, por Halloween y demás. Echarle un ojo, hay un apartado que pone Spook October o no sé qué. Mirad esa mierda, es interesante. Hasta luego, buenas tardes.